We are talking the legend of Lake Hollow. This one directed by Chris Hollow. Hubris. Anyway, this is a kind of supernatural mystery film. What's it all about? It focuses on a group of friends that are going away for a short break in a cabin in the woods by a lake. And there's 3 guys and 2 girls. And, they're going to spend some time, quality time and all that sort of thing. There's a little bit of kind of animosity between some of the friends as they don't always agree on certain issues. And whilst they are there, they are warned by the local caretaker just to kind of be a little careful in the woods and things like this. But not long after, there seems to be strange noises coming from the woods, and then followed by kind of ghostly figures and rustling sounds and evidence of kind of what can only be described as unnatural things being caught on kind of trail cams that are kind of dotted around the area. And our group of friends become increasingly more agitated as the phenomena continues. What will happen? You will have to watch the movie and find out. So, let's discuss, shall we? What works in this movie's favour? This movie's greatest strength, I would say, is its ability to be kind of creepy and have this sense of eeriness that slowly builds through the movie. Now, this is a relatively slow-paced film in some ways, because there's really at no point in the film a kind of jump scare or kind of like set piece moment exactly. But what you do have is just a slow building of a sense of paranoia, of kind of creepiness, of something's not quite right, but you don't know exactly what. And there seems to be so much kind of weirdness going on, it's hard to put a finger on what actually is the plot here if you don't already know. And I'm not going to spoil it for you, obviously. Suffice to say, you know something is amiss, but it's quite hard to see, what the actual kind of situation is. There seems to be various things, creature sounds coming from the night, kind of ghostly figures, some of which have kind of like battle wounds, a kind of creature-looking thing with kind of a skull head, various kind of like odd phenomena. And it gives you this sense of, I don't know what's going on, a little bit of sense of panic, if you know what I mean. And I think that movie does have its greatest strength is this kind of creepy atmosphere. This is coupled by, I think, a pretty good soundtrack that I think underscores some of the more creepy moments without ever really kind of going into the kind of like kind of sound and things like that. And these kind of like, manipulative sort of sound effects. So it has this kind of slow build through the movie with this kind of growing sense of kind of fear as our group of friends are cut off. Their cars seem to have been vandalised. They can't get any kind of phone signal. Things like this. So, it's what is going on. So, yeah, it's an increasingly kind of difficult situation from them. And again, to add to that, I've got to say, I think the movie's relatively well shot. There's some great sort of sequences with the misty woods and this kind of sense of isolation that's captured through some nice photography there. That's all sort of fairly good. And then it introduces a couple of elements here which you think are going to be like a major sort of point to the story, and it isn't really. So it kind of distracts you with certain things. I won't say what plot points aren't really kind of relevant, but it gives you a few what I would class as red herrings. Now, I don't know if that was necessarily unintentional, if I'm honest, but it is what it is. VFX relatively light, but when we do see them, again, pretty good standards, and thanks to the creepy atmosphere, I would say they're at least affecting, if not exactly flamboyant, but affecting for a certain degree. So, it's very much a mood piece, if you like. What doesn't work in this movie? Okay, the structure of the movie is my main critique here. This movie is nearly all set up with a short conclusion at the end. So it's, let me tell you how a movie I think more or less should be made in regards to your classic kind of 3-act structure. You have your setup, what's going on, things are weird, kind of like there's spooky stuff happening, you know, it's setting up the kind of the mystery, what's going on, there's stuff happening. Okay, the mystery is somewhat revealed. We have to have our cast now try and, you know, at the lowest point, try and find a way back, try and find a way to kind of like maybe fight back, give them a chance maybe to kind of like get the, you know, the odds on their sort of favour. Maybe there's a couple of sort of stumbling blocks in the way, but they're kind of able to try and figure out a plan, or at least start to see what's going on. And then you have kind of like the fight back. It may or may not go your way. You know, your conclusion, things are maybe revealed. That's your kind of your plot. This is set up, conclusion. And that's kind of it. So it's lots of kind of spooky stuff happening without really telling you or characters what's actually going on. And it's not to the very end where you learn the truth about what it is in an exposition dump. And by then the characters are kind of, it's too late really. So, you know, it's an odd setup where it works in the fact that I think it sets up for a creepy atmosphere, but from a storytelling perspective, it almost seems like it's a huge Act 1 and then an Act 1 and an Act 2 and 3 sort of together just at the end. So yeah, it's a little bit of an odd story structure, which I don't think necessarily works if you look at it from a kind of an engaging plot perspective. The other thing I would say, and is the acting isn't solid. There's some, I think the acting is mixed. So I don't think this is necessary. I have seen critiques that this is badly acted. And I think there are some sequences with the acting isn't strong. But I also think it's not consistently bad. So the acting is certainly a mixed bag. You're not exactly fully believing the characters, I have to say. But yeah, there are instances here where the acting is mixed, to say the least. There are some issues where I thought this doesn't make logical sense to me. We have a sequence, for example, where there's like a landline phone, and there seems to be a supernatural influence on the landline phone, and I thought, well, how would that work in a realistic sense? I mean, you know, it's spooky stuff, it can do whatever it wants. But how is it able to affect like an electronic phone line when we're led to believe this is kind of like an ancient evil and things like this, and characters just decide to jet off in the woods for no reason. When characters start to realise that there is something maybe supernatural going on, they still seem to make like irrational and quite frankly silly decisions and things like this. The most sensible option would have been to walk out then in the day, but it never really kind of happens. So yeah, there's some kind of like, you know, decisions here that I feel were on the kind of the sillier side, just because the plot needs to happen. So overall, I think this movie, certainly for a creepy film, that's you know, an interesting idea, an interesting setup, with a very rushed conclusion, is a little unsatisfying. It's not a terrible movie, it's watchable, and I think the mystery is interesting, and had I think the story been structured differently, it could have been more of a gripping film, but as it stands, it's kind of, the concept is just a little misjudged here. I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.